I am of the opinion that most Web3 games can totally exist without their own tokens. If an economy is balanced and there's just as much inflow as outflow, there is literally no reason why a game can't use Bitcoin, for example, or Ethereum, for example. The one exception I have is a game like Mirandus, where Materium is the magic of the world and is literally burned and used to cast spells in the game, but the magic has real value and can be exchanged for Ethereum. In that sort of a game, it makes sense that you would have a magic that exists as an ERC20 token or something, and then also have a currency that might be Bitcoin or something like that. But other than these few rare scenarios, I think that most games launching their own coins are doing it more as a money grab than as a necessity. However, I just saw this tweet from Bitbinder Brink, the president of blockchain at GALA Games, and I have not read it yet, but the title of the tweet is that he wants to dig into why having their own coin makes sense in their games. So I'm going to read this tweet and respond to it. And I do want to say, I highly respect Bitbinder. I think that of everyone at GALA that I still know, because almost everyone that I liked has left or been fired, Bitbinder is kind of like the last guy there that I really like, that I think his heart is in the right place. I think he's trying to do best for the space. And unfortunately, he hasn't been able to keep on-chain gaming as part of GALA, but I think that's going to be good long term. Even after the CEO of GALA, who owns more nodes than anyone else, decided to cancel the referral program and all of that. But let's not get into all of that. And by the way, it was Eric who decided to cancel GALA referrals. He has the majority of votes, more votes than anyone else. He can decide which way the votes go because most nodes don't vote. And he was like, oh, they've already sold enough nodes for us. Let's just put it up for a vote and I can vote to cancel their share. And then Bitbinder came and wanted to support on-chain gaming. And unfortunately, that has now fallen through, but I think it's actually long-term. We're going to look back and say that was really fortunate that on-chain gaming can now, no strings attached, actually share his honest opinions. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's take a look here at this tweet from Bitbinder Brink. So he says, there have been quite a few questions about why it would ever make sense to have a secondary token in a game. Let's dig into it. And if you guys don't know, if you're just clicking on this channel for the first time and you don't know why you would want to listen to me, well, I've been the biggest advocate for Web3 gaming on the entire internet for the last several years. And I have done a ton of research into how economics of these economies work. And I think that I understand the fundamentals of blockchain gaming as well as anyone. But I guess you can be your own judge for that as we get into this. So he says, thanks to GALA Games Gold community for giving me the forum to lay some of this out there first. That's a pitch to join GALA Gold. Firstly, one thing that has been understood is that a game cannot control or influence the emissions of a primary ecosystem token. So he's saying this has to be understood. You wouldn't, for example, have a game built on ETH make more ETH. That the absolute most it would be able to do is redistribute ETH, which came in via the game as a play to earn reward. And he's 100% right here. Ethereum is a decentralized token that they don't control. Bitcoin would be the same thing if it was like Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. But if a game is balanced, a game does not need to make more. If it's a balanced economy, then there should be just as much outflow as there is inflow. Think about it like this. If I have an item in a game, which the game should be able to create its own items, right? You should be able to farm and craft a table or something, and that table could be an NFT. And then if I wanted to sell that table to another player, they can buy it from me for ETH. And ETH works as the transaction token there. And if, for example, people needed to maybe pay to enter a map and play a challenge, then that ETH that gets paid into could then get paid out to those who successfully beat the map or something like that. And it's exactly kind of how casinos work, except they would actually be games of skill instead of games of luck, which I think is really awesome. So there's kind of two different lines here. One is players interacting with each other. There's no reason why ETH and Bitcoin can't be the coin. And then players earning from the game, as long as the game is balanced and you have just as much going into the game as coming out, then there's also no reason. You don't need to make more ETH. You just need to distribute 99% of the ETH that gets inserted back out to the players, and the game developers can keep 1% of the ETH to continue developing the game. So no disagreement here. But this doesn't yet say why we would ever need to have like their own token. So let's keep on going here. GALA is no different. Obviously, a single game like Grit can't change the emissions of the GALA token. Okay, so that's fair, but kind of, because GALA is like one of the most centralized, and this isn't me being biased or butthurt or something. GALA is now one of the most centralized crypto coins that exists. GALA Games has complete control over the contract. They can change anything within the contract at any point. They can freeze GALA in people's wallets if it's on Jiri, and it is the definition now of a centralized token. And because Grit's part of GALA, if GALA wanted, they could totally let Grit change emissions. But it sounds like that's not the goal of GALA here. But in reality, it could happen. There's no decentralization here ensuring that it couldn't. Now there are ways, so continuing the reading. Now there are ways redistribution of a token could potentially work. Of course, but it depends on a lot of the fundamental economics of the game, people's willingness to spend in the game, etc. And I would just say if people aren't willing to spend in the game, then no one else should be able to earn in the game, because if you're distributing tokens and no one is buying them, then the tokens are going to go to zero. So it's not going to work regardless if people are not willing to spend in a game. However, he continues, in general, user spends X, player gets Y percentage of X. It is always a decreasing number. And that's because the game is going to take some out. Just like in the real world, the US government taxes and takes some out. Now, the US government, a lot of it gets used by politicians and stuff. Probably there's a lot of corruption there, but the US government's goal is to then redistribute it back. So it's not the exact same thing, because GALA will be just like literally be keeping it for game development and stuff. But the way that they'll give back is by increasing the fund, releasing new levels, releasing new areas of the map. So I guess they would be giving back even the percentage that they kept with value. At least that's what you hope. Context here, Bitbender continues. Typically, in free-to-play gaming, 97% of players spend nothing. Of those 3% that do spend, 80% of the spending comes from the top 10% of that top 3%. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like I need to do a Bernie Sanders voice when writing this. I love Bitbender. All right. So if you take that spend and say 15% of that gets distributed out to players, it does 15%. If that's how GALA's thinking, if they're like, we're going to keep 85% of what gets inputted, the economy's dead right there. That's not going to work. You guys need to flip that. Say 85%, say 95% gets distributed out to players. That's more how we should be doing, not 15%. What the heck? That's freaking ridiculous. One, you have leaderboard-based payout for people, and a small number get that small percentage. Most people get absolutely nothing. Why is it such a okay? There's a fundamental thing that I think we need to get across here. Someone made a comment in the last video when I said that players want to be able to own some of the value of the ecosystem and profit alongside the game developers. Someone made a comment which at first glance seems right. They said, why, if a game company has all the control, why would they share any of the value with us? Why wouldn't they just keep all the value themselves? The answer to that question is, if you give players pieces of the pie and players feel like they own it, then the pie can be so much bigger. And if you have a pie that's let's just say 90 billion meters wide and you own like 1 billion of those meters, you only own 1% of the pie, right? But it's such a big pie still. That slice is so massive. Whereas if you're like a traditional game and you're like, we're not going to give any of it to players, or even what GALA wants to do, we're only going to give 15% to players, you're greatly shrinking the total size that pie can ever get to. Players are never going to care as much about your game. They're never going to be as invested in your game. They're never going to be as big of advocates for your game if you're not letting them get value. I think you guys have seen that kind of in on-chain gaming. They're going to hold their heart closer to themselves when they don't feel like they actually own the game. And that means the entire square meter of that pie, maybe it only reaches 1 million square meters. And it doesn't matter if you own the entire pie. It's smaller than 1% of a massive pie would be if you let the whole world own a piece of it. So it's kind of the idea of having like a small mindset or a big mindset. Having a zero-sum mindset or a positive-sum mindset, where giving ownership away doesn't mean you have less. It means the entire pie gets bigger. And that is the first company, the first CEO that has that mindset, which is not Eric Schiermeier. That company is going to be massive, absolutely insanely massive. Because guess what? Players are going to be the biggest advocates for that metaverse ever. It's also not Zuck, by the way. It's not Zuckerberg either. But yeah, a company that wants to keep 85%, their pie is going to stay small, and they're never going to have the advocates. They're never going to have the people behind them like a company that only wanted to keep 1% and wanted the community to own almost the entire ecosystem. That's the dream I have for Web3. That's what can be amazing. Okay, but let's get back to this. So say 15% gets distributed out to the players. You have a leaderboard, small percentage get that small percentage. Most people get absolutely nothing. 2, you have a distribution to a lot of people, which means that nobody actually gets an amount that makes sense to them. Yeah, because you're keeping 85% yourself. So of course. What does this mean? Bitbender continues. It means that in a system based around the redistribution of a token, it means that in a system based around the redistribution of a token received in payment, there's very little burn of the payment token. In a system based around the redistribution of a token in payment, there is very little burn of the payment token. The publisher takes something, there's rev share to the developer, and then something left over for the user at the end. Maybe? What? Maybe? That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. You've started to lose me, Bitbender. However, in an ecosystem where there is a secondary token like spider tanks, we can just keep generating tons of it and pay it out and pretend it has value even though it's inflationary. No, sorry. That's not what he said. The usage of GALA is much higher. Okay, so where there's a secondary token like spider tanks, the usage of GALA is much higher. That doesn't make sense. Like 2 orders of magnitude higher. What? The secondary token, when coupled with honor, takes what people have thought of as... Okay, I also disagree with the whole idea of honor. If you are going to punish people for selling a token, then you don't believe that your game has enough value for people to want to keep pouring into it or hold their value in that ecosystem. If you need honor to stop people from selling, then you don't believe in the balance of your economy. But let's keep going. That's a side tangent. It takes what people have thought of a play to earn game and turns it into a play to own, because you receive the token and turn around and use it to improve and level up your tanks, which you can bridge out and use however you would like. I think I'm grasping this, but I also am still not sure that it actually makes sense. Additionally, those who need to can pull something out of the ecosystem without getting totally crushed in what is proving to be a fairly stable economy. Without getting totally crushed. You just lose your earnings ability going forward. But hey, at least you got to sell something. Honestly, what this does is this is what it's going to do. It's going to incentivize that people play a game for like a year, 2 years, stack up a bunch of tokens, and then when they're ready to leave, they just cash out completely and then never come back because they can't earn anymore after they lose their honor. And they're currently like turning your tokens into NFTs and tanks and be like, oh, then you can move your tanks out and sell your tanks. The problem is tanks are inflationary. It's like axes. There's going to be more and more and more and more and more tanks always. So tanks are just I don't know if tanks are balanced. I don't know if this is a balanced economy, but so far Spider Tanks has been fairly stable with honor and everything. I can't fault GALA, to be completely honest. I can't fault them too much for how they have Spider Tanks set up because we're in an experimental phase of Web3. There are no best practices yet, and you can't hate on a company for trying something. I'm glad that they're trying something. I'm glad that they're trying to see if this can work. It's not the way that I would prefer it to be done, but at least they're seeing if this model is possible. However, I can fault GALA for being extremely greedy and overcharging for NFTs and then telling you to F off if you want an ROI. This isn't bad in theory. I'm going to continue reading here. It is supposed to be actual data. The distribution for grit, for example, worked out to be less than 1 cent per hour of play if we go with the used GALA only model, and it just gets worse from there. So if they expect that like a new coin is going to increase the payout, but it's not balanced, the new coin either has to be inflationary and is going to lose value, or they have to do an honor system so you can't actually sell that coin. So it can keep value because it keeps inflating, but you can't sell it. Or they have to be like, well, you turn your coins into NFTs and that's what has value. But once again, like the NFTs, if they inflate too much, like in the real world, anything you make eventually breaks. That's why the real world economy works. Houses fall apart, you need to repair them. Tables break, you always need a new table to be made. If stuff exists forever in any economy, that economy is not going to work. Stuff needs utility, then it needs to break. Then you need to pay someone to repair it. Then you need to make a new thing. Everything in the economy needs to be circular and non-inflationary, or slight inflation, like 2% inflation, like the US government tries to do with the US dollar. The distribution with Spider Tanks, on the other hand, averages $8 per earner per day and is holding quite stable and driving significant GALA usage, utility, and player growth. So this is good. This is great, except that $8 per day are dollars you can't sell. Like if you sell it, you can't earn anymore. So are you really earning $8 per day, or are you giving the placebo effect of belief that you're earning $8, but as soon as people start selling, the coin crashes and you're not even getting close to that? I'm not sure. I think the Spider Tanks economy could work, but I don't know. And I don't like that you need an honor system to force people not to sell a token. You just need to not have inflation of the token. And I think that Spider Tanks is on kind of that circular economy where just as many people are spending, like burning to upgrade their tanks as are earning, and the token supply isn't increasing that much. I do think that's generally what's happening with Spider Tanks. So I don't know, maybe you have to force people to use their tokens on NFTs instead of being able to sell. But like I said, it could also just be prolonging the problem if tanks are just inflating. And there's like every year there's way more high level tanks than last year. And the next year there's way more high level tanks than the last year. It's like eventually that means high level tanks aren't going to be worth that much. And people are going to realize that burning their tokens into inflating NFTs isn't worth it. And they're going to want to sell. And then you kind of run into the same problem. I think the real problem that we've identified here is that GALA wants to keep 85% of the value that goes into the ecosystem. That's why you can't earn in the game, because GALA wants everything for themselves. I think that's the real problem here. But let's keep on going. Additionally, the secondary token model is much more closely aligned to the requirements of having someone else come from the outside to build on GALA chain. And this is once again because the new token is meant to fund the games. It's not... The reason you launch a new token is because having your own currency gives a lot of power. Like that's why the US government is fighting crypto. They want the US dollar to stay the reserve currency, because when it's the reserve currency, you can print a lot of it and you get a lot of spending power. And the same thing applies when you launch your own gaming token. If it gets a big market cap, you unlock a lot of spending power. And the reason you wouldn't want players to be able to sell the coin is so you can sell that coin while it's still a high market cap. It just gets really shady, and we need a lot more regulation when companies are launching their own coins. While we working with the community to jumpstart, I'm surprised that's the first typo here. While we work with the community to jumpstart the ecosystem, the long-term plan is total decentralization. I don't think GALA is ever going to be totally decentralized. I'm going to be completely honest. I think that's not going to happen, especially the way they moved with GALA 2.0, how much more centralized it is than the last contract was. They're moving more and more centralized. All right, the too long didn't read. Now, hopefully this will be helpful. Maybe I misunderstood something. Used correctly, secondary tokens strengthen the ecosystem for the primary token, not weaken it. This is supported by actual data. Because you're just paying out this fake new token. We'll see. Time will tell. Systems like Honor are extremely effective for creating an optional and streamlined path for a game to be a skill-based play to own. Honor is extremely effective, definitely, in getting people not to sell tokens so that the coin price doesn't plummet. That's for sure. The way that I think you should actually be incentivizing people to turn their tokens into game stuff is by making a fun game and making the stuff that you can get with your tokens so desirable that everyone wants to get that stuff instead of selling their tokens, or that if they want to sell their tokens, there's enough other people that want to buy those tokens because they need them to craft things that they want. GALA has utility baked into everything. Whether it is as a gas fee on the chain or simply benefits from usage within the ecosystem by consumptive use, which in turn enhances the proposition for founders' nodes. Okay, I'm going to post this now and let the GALA Games community pick at it. There may be updates and edits. Well, here's my pick at it. If you thought that I was misrepresenting anything, Bitbender, I would love to be corrected. Or if you think that my takes are incorrect around any of this, then let me know why. I think the strongest argument for like the need for a secondary token is Mirandus and being used for magic and burn to cast spells and stuff. Like you obviously can't burn ETH because you don't control ETH. I mean, you can put it in a burn wallet or something, but that's only helpful if the ETH then gets like resummoned by players playing the game in the world. I mean, I guess honestly, even burning ETH to cast magic would kind of work. I don't know. It's such a hard topic. The bottom line though is just having a greedy company that wants a lot of money from us and views the blockchain as a way to make more money is not going to work. And a company that wants to share ownership with the players and have a small piece of a massive pie, it would probably work either way. So maybe the bottom line isn't whether or not you have more than one token or not, or whether you launch your own token or not. It's actually having that token be decentralized, actually having the economy balanced, and actually not being super greedy and wanting to rip off your users. Which I'm not saying, I know Bitbender, that's not what you want to do. But other people definitely do. So that's that. If you guys agreed this or enjoyed this video, whether or not you agreed or disagreed with the take, remember to drop a big thumbs up. Leave your own opinions in the comment section below. I'm very interested to read those. Guys, my mind is open. I am very, very happy to be corrected. And if some of my logic is flawed here, I want to know that it's flawed so that I can improve my thinking. That's my goal here. I want to be thinking about this in the right way. My biggest problem with this entire post is this right here. 15% gets paid back to players. That's not going to work. F that. See you guys in the next one. By the way, guys, if you like the new on-chain gaming, the pulls no punches on-chain gaming, the has no strings attached on-chain gaming, the savage logical thinking on-chain. Okay, I just stopped. Make sure you support on-chain gaming on Patreon if you want us to stay independent. We are going to stay independent, but it would be very helpful if you did support us on-chain gaming. And from now on, Patreon is getting exclusive videos every single week, actually going into transparently every buy and sell that I make in the market, both crypto and stocks. So I think I'm offering a lot of value there now as well. So really appreciate the support, guys. Thank you so much for joining the Patreon and also checking out Magic Book, which is my new AI startup, which is really cool. I'll have videos linked so you can check out more about Magic Book and the Patreon, and I'll see you guys next time.